Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I wanted to talk about another new update that Games Workshop released, which goes over and highlights some really big changes that are on the way for Warhammer 40k in 9th edition. And I do think these are going to be massive changes to the way we build armies and play the game, so let's not waste any time and let's just jump right into it. In last week's Epic Preview, the Codex show, we showed you a few brand new datasheets that feature in the upcoming books, one being that of Heavy Intercessors. Some of you eagle-eyed readers out there noticed the introduction of a new keyword, Core, and we wanted to take this opportunity to tell you a bit more about it and the impact it will have on the future of Warhammer 40,000. So as you can see here, they show the Heavy Intercessors, which I think are a really cool unit, and are probably going to show up in the meta very quickly and probably going to be very good, but that's a topic for another video. But yeah, as you can see, they have all the usual keywords that you would expect for a unit like this, but they also now have Core, which, like they said, is a brand new keyword. So let's read how it works. Core units. The core keyword is used to identify units that form the fighting, core of an army. They are most commonly represented by units of line infantry, though this doesn't mean it's exclusive to troops, nor just infantry. In the case of the first two books, Codex Space Marines and Codex Necrons, many elite units such as Terminator squads, Lich Guard, as well as fast attack units like Bike Squads and Tomb Blades have the core keyword. Even some vehicles will be core units too, where appropriate. But what does it mean to be a core unit? Aura abilities. Moving forward, many of the most powerful aura abilities will only affect core units from a character's sub-faction. This represents a more realistic form of in situ command. I don't think I've ever seen this before, with characters acting like they're supposed to from a narrative perspective. After all, a Space Marine captain should be issuing orders and inspiring units of his battle brothers on the front line, not babysitting a squad of repulsor executioners at the back of the battlefield. So basically what this is saying is, those types of gun lines where you would have like a bunch of repulsors or a bunch of like dreadnoughts or a bunch of centurions or a bunch of just heavy hitting units most likely isn't going to work with these reroll auras anymore. So it actually nerfs those quite a bit, and it puts more emphasis on having your characters actually hang around with the units you would expect them to in the lore, like going up with all their troops and stuff like that, going into battle to go smack stuff and kill stuff. So as an example, let's take a look at the updated Rites of Battle aura abilities shared by all varieties of Space Marines captains. So Rites of Battle aura, while a friendly chapter core unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. A crucial side effect of this change is that characters themselves won't be affected by aura abilities that utilize the core keyword. They're supposed to be commanding others, not inspiring themselves to do better. In the example shown above, the Space Marine captain won't be able to re-roll his hit rolls of 1 and will instead have to rely on his own merit to strike home. To be fair, he'll usually hit on a 2+ anyways. Nor will the aforementioned captain be affected by a lieutenant's tactical precision aura ability. A captain has been there, seen it, and done it all, which is why he's in charge and has such an amazing profile in the first place. However, and very much as intended, a nearby core unit of Space Marines will be significantly more effective when in the presence of their captain and or lieutenant, just as they should be. So like in this example, the lieutenant does not give his reroll 1s to wound aura to the captain, but he does give it to this guy. And then when I scroll down, that's pretty much it. That's the end of this article. So I guess now let's go over my thoughts on these changes and how they're going to impact the game and the way that we build armies. So going back up to this part, let's talk about core units first, and then I'm going to talk about the way auras are going to affect core units and non-core units and give you my thoughts on those. So for core units, how I think this is going to work is that I think pretty much every troops choice in the game is going to become core, because troops are core to an army, in my opinion. And I would assume most of you would agree with me. So I assume most troops are going to get the core keyword because it makes the most sense to me. Then when it comes down to individual sub-factions, I think different units, depending on the sub-faction, are going to get the core keyword. For example, in the Blood Angel supplement that comes out after the Space Marine Codex, I think stuff like Death Company or Sanguinary Guard, or units that feel core to Blood Angels, those are going to have the core keyword, maybe even like regular assault Marines as well. So I feel like this core keyword, especially if you want to build like some sort of death ball or have a ton of synergy when it comes to rerolls and auras being able to affect as many units as possible, you're probably going to want to stick to the core of your army. Sure, you can include some stuff that isn't core as long as it's good enough and has the proper rules to be able to hold its own by itself, but for the most part, you're probably going to want to have as much synergy as possible to be able to give as many buffs and auras to as many units as possible. I also like this change as well because it'll stop certain things from happening that we all kind of expected to happen if this change wasn't implemented. For example, for Dark Angels, their core units are most likely going to be like the Ravenwing Bikes or their Terminators. I forget exactly what they're called, but the special Terminators that Dark Angels have, they're probably going to have core as well. But I assume stuff like Centurions aren't going to get the core keyword. Maybe for something like Imperial Fists, I could see them getting the core keyword, but other than that, probably not. But yeah, and the reason I bring that Dark Angels up and Centurions, because I've talked to a lot of people about it, and if things stayed the same, once the Space Marine Codex comes out, if Azrael, which I think is the proper character, I could be mixing him up with somebody else, but the character that gives a 4-up invul to friendly Dark Angels infantry around them, that would be incredibly good on Centurions, especially if you combine that with another character that can give them like a 6-up feel no pain, and then also like full-on rerolls from a chapter master and all that kind of stuff. Centurions would be kind of disgusting like that. But now if those auras only work with core units, well, you can't really do that type of stuff anymore. You can, but you're not going to be able to do it with those really broken units unless those really broken units are part of your core, which I think helps keep the game thematic and keeps sub-factions looking unique, so it's not just like every Space Marine chapter spamming Centurions, or as it is right now, aggressors and stuff like that. I feel like this is going to force each individual chapter to build their own unique way, which I think is going to be good and healthy for the game. So I do think that this core change is very healthy for the game, and I think it's good for the game. It's also going to really diminish the effectiveness of like death balls, where you group a bunch of units together and just get rerolls on everybody because you have like a chapter master with a 9-inch reroll aura. So I think those are going to be a little less prevalent, but I think they are still going to exist, because what's stopping somebody from making an entire army of just core units and then spamming as many auras as they can to be able to buff up all those core units a lot? But at least in that way, when they're doing it that way, it's still going to look fluffy. It's still going to look like it matches the lore because you're using all of the core of that army. So I guess that's the one benefit. Yeah, it also kind of, like I said here, it's probably going to stop like traditional gun lines where you just spam whatever the hardest hitting units are and then put them in the back and have like a captain and a lieutenant just hang out with them to give them rerolls. Even though, to be honest, the way 9th edition was looking, that's not necessarily the way you want to play anyways. You want to build an army that moves up into the center of the board and takes control of everything. If you build a stationary gun line, I would say against a good player, 90% of the time you're going to lose the game as a stationary gun line, because in the new edition you do need to move out and actually grab objectives. But yeah, it's just going to nerf those stationary gun lines even more, which I think we're all happy about. Nobody really enjoys playing against somebody that just sits there and shoots all game. The one thing I don't like, though, is that the characters don't benefit from their own auras. Because I feel it's kind of weird, because now, like, let's say you have intercessors charging into a unit that's -1 to hit in close combat, but you also have Guilliman nearby. So Guilliman's going to give those rerolls over to the intercessors, so they're going to hit a bunch and they're going to wound a bunch, but then Guilliman himself, suffering the -1, is only going to hit on 3s, and there's a decent chance he just whiffs everything and then can't reroll himself. So to me, that in a way doesn't make sense, because like Guilliman's he's a fucking Primarch. He should be able to reroll and just do amazingly well. The way I've always looked at rerolls is that characters were just so good that they had that much efficiency. And when their troops and stuff were nearby them, they wanted to impress those characters and be just like them and prove that they're good as well. Sure, I guess Games Workshop's take is probably the one most people assumed was the way it worked, is that they're inspiring their troops to do better. But I always looked at it as those characters were just good on their own, and that's why they got the reroll. And then on top of that, they were inspiring the other guys to do just as well as they do. From a balance perspective, though, I do agree with this change, because then it definitely puts more emphasis on your actual army doing the damage and winning the game, and less emphasis on your characters doing damage and winning the game. So this is more or less just another nerf to Hero Hammer. And if you don't know what I mean by Hero Hammer is when a person builds a list that just spams a ton of really good characters and then a bunch of chaff to go out in front of them to protect the characters and allow them to get into close combat where they're going to smack a bunch of stuff to death. And although personally I do love that type of list, I enjoyed making like Space Wolves and Blood Angels Hero Hammer lists. They were a lot of fun. But at the same time, I do get the idea that it seems like Games Workshop wants your actual army to be the one that does the majority of damage, and less emphasis on the characters actually putting in the damage. So I guess balance wise, it is good for the game. I think it is a good change for the game. It's just one that I don't personally like because of my own biases, but I'm willing to put those aside and say, yes, it is good for the game. So because of this, my overall thoughts and conclusions is there's going to be less Hero Hammer, I think. There's going to be less stationary gun lines. and there's going to be more armies that just try to spam as many core units as possible to have as much synergy as possible when it comes to their characters giving auras and buffs like that, because now that characters don't necessarily buff themselves, they really are just there for support to support the rest of your army. And when it comes to efficiency, you want your support supporting as many units as they possibly can so you get the best bang for your buck. So because of that, I feel like certain armies are going to play pretty much entirely with just core armies and maybe a couple of other units that aren't core splashed in there, as long as they have the proper stats to be able to like hang on their own and be able to still accomplish stuff by themselves. With that said, there's still probably going to be armies that don't spam core units and still spam just whatever their best units are. For example, one of them is probably Drukhari, because as of right now, other than like an Archon giving rerolls of 1s to hit and wound to a couple of Ravagers, Drukhari doesn't really make use of any aura abilities at all, other than like a Homunculus giving +1 toughness to friendly Coven units within 6 inches. They kinda, every unit in the Drukhari army can kinda go off and do their own thing and still do exceptionally well. So I do think that this core mechanic is only going to be very important for certain armies that like to rely on rerolls, like Space Marines, and for other armies like Drukhari, at least in their current form, they're still going to have a bunch of units that are just can accomplish goals on their own, and core isn't going to be that big of a deal in my opinion. But again, that's based off their current rules. In the future, when they get a new codex, that can definitely change. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on all these changes. And yeah, overall, I think they're very good balance changes. I think they're heading the game in a good direction. And they're definitely very big changes that are going to have an impact on the way that we build army lists and play this game. So with that said, that's going to be it for this video. I'd love to know all your thoughts as well, whether you like these changes, whether you disagree with them, and if you do disagree with them, how would you have gone about changing things to put more emphasis on actual troops and the units of an army being the main part of the army instead of characters kind of overshadowing everything. So yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button since it does help with the YouTube algorithm. And if you enjoy the content I make on this channel and you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified when I make new videos. Also, if you're already subscribed to the channel and you find yourself enjoying this channel a lot and you would like to give back so that I can continue making content, I'd like to ask that you check me out on Patreon. Patreon's the main source of income for the channel, and it's what keeps my bills paid and allows me to make these videos. I offer a bunch of different rewards for different tiers, stuff like exclusive access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord server, personalized coaching, custom list building, a whole bunch of different rewards that you can get for different pledges, with the cheapest pledge being $5 a month, which is the cost of a couple of coffees. So with that said, thanks to all my past and current patrons. You guys and gals are awesome, and I love you all, and thanks to all you regular viewers as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.